Yo tengo la fortuna de colaborar con el guionista nominado al Oscar, Taft Murphy. Fue nominado por Gorilas en la Niebla, pero aparte ha escrito Tarzán, Tierra de Osos, Atlantis o Notre Dame, entre otras. Y hace poquito tuvimos la fortuna de hacerle una entrevista que está en este canal de YouTube, pueden ver ahí el video. Y hubo una sección de preguntas específicas que muchos de mis seguidores le hicieron. Y en este video, literalmente le hicimos el Q&A a Tab de estas preguntas y aquí están sus respuestas. Hola, soy Erisin, ser artista de películas animadas y live action, y este es mi canal donde les comparto todo lo que sé sobre animación, cine, arte digital y todo ese rollo. Así que si no lo has hecho, dale click en suscribir porque estoy subiendo una cantidad de información súper jugosa y súper útil sobre estos temas y mucho más.
First question. What is your creative process? / is there any books you recommend for screenwriters?
Well, I'm probably the wrong screenwriter to ask that question because I've never read a screenwriting book in my life. I think, I do teach students occasionally screenwriting, but my recommendation to them is to read as many screenplays as you can get your hands on. And watch as many movies as you can watch. And the best thing is to watch the movie of the screenplay you just read so that you can see how it was translated to the screen. So reading a lot of screenplays will start to give you a language of screenwriting, whether it's slug lines or, whatever, settings, etc., etc. And that's, screenwriting is really a blueprint for visuals to be interpreted by a director. That's what screenwriting is. So if you find that you're writing dialogue, lots of dialogue like this, or lots of scene description like this, that's not screenwriting. Screenwriting is the ability to choose the right words in a short few sentences that create images in the reader's mind. So you're basically writing as visually as you possibly can. That is one thing that is, it's hard to teach, but when you suddenly start to read screenplays and see the images and you notice that the writing is somewhat spare, it's not like a novel, that's when you start to hook into this idea of, okay, how can I write visually? How can I make the reader see what I see in my mind up on that movie screen in my subconscious, right? So yeah, I mean, a lot of people pay a lot of money for screenwriting expos, for screenwriting books, for screenwriting, courses online, of which I teach a few. But I still think the bottom line is to read as many screenplays as you can get your hands on, and read them, really with an eye towards what is the writer, how did they manipulate my feelings in this scene? How are they building tension in this story? How, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a great answer. So, question 2: how do ideas search? How do you get your ideas?
Where do I get my ideas? Well, I mean, honestly, mostly, I have such a base knowledge of movies that I grew up with that I, like in certain movies I really love, and then you combine that with my life experience. Like, I'm 65, man, so I've been on this planet for a while, and you see things and you get out there, and I mean, so the hardest thing for a young writer, a new writer, to do is to come up with ideas. I get this all the time. In fact, I had one young man when I was living in Canada, asked if he could come and just ask me some questions. I said, sure, come. He was 19, and he said, I really want to be a screenwriter, but I'm struggling with ideas. I mean, what's your advice? And I said, dude, my advice, go live your life for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow.
Go, take off. Go. Go to Europe, backpack around, fall in love, get your heart broken, blah, blah, blah. Go get some life experience so that you have something to write about.
Yeah.
Something to support an idea that you might have. Otherwise, basically, you're just going to be copycatting what you see, right? You're just going to pick a genre and you're going to go, well, okay. And so, the best writing is a place that comes from authenticity, from experience, life experience. So don't beat yourself up because you're not a world-class screenwriter at 19. Go out and live your life, and you know. So that's kind of where my ideas come from, all different places, all different sectors. I mean, you may have seen that I wrote this. I wrote a documentary. I wrote the narration for a documentary on kangaroos. It's coming out in December on Netflix.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's called Kangaroo Valley. It's the most Disney-like, non-Disney thing I've done in years. So everybody check it out. But there again, that's like writing opportunities come when they strike a nerve with you, you know. These days, I'd say if you're just simply focused on writing movies as a screenwriter, that, you know, you're going to have a really tough road to hoe, because there are so many content providers out there. And as a writer, good storytelling is good storytelling. It doesn't really matter the medium anymore. I mean, if it's a movie, great. But if it's a series, if it's a YouTube channel thing, if it's a, you know, a short film, if it, whatever exercises that muscle is a good thing, right? So
yeah. No, that's great, because that question came up so many times. Like, how do you get started, like, with a script? And I think you just answered the question. You know, like, live life. You'll find the topic you want by living life.
Yeah, a lot of people start writing blogs. You know, just write your experiences, and you know, then eventually, if you want to channel that into screenwriting or writing for television or writing for games. I mean, you know, I'm writing a game too. I've never done that in my career.
That's so cool. Okay, that's great. The third part of that question that it's really common in the questions. Where do you find feedback?
Well, I don't seek feedback these days in my career, except for a few very close people to me that I trust to read it. But in those days, you know, when I was young and working at 7-Eleven, I would fucking give my script to customers. Like, I was like, anybody that wants to read this, please read me, you know. So I get that. But, you know, writers groups are a good place to get feedback. Story Summit, you know, which I mentioned earlier, is a great place to go and start, because there's a lot of people that are there, and they do kind of workshop their material and their scripts and stuff. Some of that stuff is for free. It's just online. But basically finding, my advice is to find people that are trying to do the same thing you're doing and get into a writer's group. That can be very helpful. Every week you have to produce, you get read and you get feedback. So yeah, there's, you know, I would tend to steer clear of people like your mom, your sister, because they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. Oh, it's so great, it's so awesome. Yeah, and that's not the kind of feedback you need. What you need is like, okay, good idea, good starting place, but here's what you really need to do. You need to focus on this, you need to do this, you need to, that's the kind of feedback most young writers, and as much as they don't want to hear it sometimes, and it's, oh God, you know, like, that's what makes you a better writer, is to go through that fire of getting really good, strong feedback. And then, you know, once you get over the hurt ego, doing a revision and seeing, oh my God, that person was right. This reads so much better, you know? Yeah,
that happens to me in art as well.
Everybody goes through that, by the way. That's not, you know, everybody goes through that. Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. What advice do you have for beginner screenwriters?
Well, it's pretty much the same advice. I mean, you know, that I've already given, which is read a lot of screenplays,
read a lot,
watch a lot of movies, go live life, don't forget to live your life while you're so focused on becoming a screenwriter, and you know, really write, and don't be afraid to fail. Everybody fucking fails, man. My first screenplay was a piece of shit. My second screenplay was a smaller piece of shit, you know, but it was, you know, so like, don't be afraid to fail. You're not going to be a genius out of the gate. You're just not. It is a lifelong commitment to be a writer. Yeah. And if you're in it, like, I just want to write a movie and, you know, like, make a lot of money, probably the wrong reasons to become a screenwriter. Because, you know, basically real screenwriters are storytellers, just like like if you have a storyteller in you, if you want to tell stories and you need to get them out, and if you feel passionate about the stories you tell or the stories you write, that's a good litmus test for you to self-evaluate to see if that is in you, or what the real motive is for you to want to be a screenwriter.
Yeah, that's a great advice. So I think you already answered this question. What does someone without context and experience need to enter this world? And I think we can narrow it down to, you gotta talk to anyone you can and just knock the doors, and at some point.
Yeah, I mean, go into some of these. Listen, Story Summit, I keep bringing that up, but that's a great world, not only to meet fellow writers that are trying to get a leg up, but it's run by professionals. It's run by the guy who gave me my first job at Paramount. It's not run by business people. It's run by creatives, and they hold great classes, and they, sometimes they're in person and sometimes they're online. And it's really, I mean, again, the advice for any new anything, like if I wanted to be an engineer, I'd probably go fucking hang out with engineers, like, what do they talk about? What are they, like, oh, this is exciting to me. Yeah, how do I, okay, so I'm going to hang out with people that are trying to get to where I want to go. Surround yourself with people like that.
That's a great advice, yeah. So
and the world is small these days, Erica. The world is small. You could not have interviewed me in 1996 when Hunchback came out.
That's so true.
Okay, you couldn't have done it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So
the world is accessible, and if you look and you've got a little bit of detective in your mind, and no quit, you can find ways to connect with people that are doing the same thing, and that will help. I mean, I've taught classes in screenwriting. I do small groups, 4 or 5. That's it. I don't do big groups. I don't think you can learn anything in like being one of 40 people.
I agree.
Unless it's just a lecture on something specific. But if I'm mentoring you and I'm teaching you and I'm giving you skill sets and this, I gotta be at 4 or 5 people tops. But these, and I've had several groups over the years, and we do these, but it becomes like therapeutic. It becomes like therapy to them. And they're like sometimes I have to cancel. Oh my God, really? Oh, really? Okay, I guess, I'm like, guys, come on. I got a life to lead too.
Totally.
It is, because you talk about life. You talk about life. Writing is life, okay? And it's personally, it's your life. And so you talk about things that are going on, and so anyway, I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it really did. It really did. And it's a question that it repeats so much. Like, where do I get started? How do I get started? And like you said, writing. To start writing, you start knocking doors, and like you say, you can find resources online if you are smart enough to look. The resources, even a PDF that you find somewhere laying around, it's there. You just gotta go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is about writing itself. What process do you think is the most useful for creating characters, memorable characters?
Well, I mean, screenwriting to me, it's always like I have this idea. I sort of picture an onion, right? And generally, when I start writing on something, I assume that whatever I'm writing initially is the first layer of that onion. So when I get to that, okay, I've done this, then I really, to dig deeper into character, it's like peeling the layers of that onion back, and you keep working and you keep working, you keep giving them, and it's also like, here's the other thing that really it connects to memorable characters, and it's something you can do in life. Pay attention. Pay attention to what's being said around you, what you overhear, how people talk, situations that you're in, pay attention, man. Take notes. I mean, that's where memorable characters come from. I mean, most of my memorable characters probably have a piece of somebody I know or have overheard or have seen or an experience I've had somewhere in that, right?
Mhm.
Obviously you create as well, but the best characters, the most memorable ones, are the ones that, you know, sort of have some sort of basis in reality, in somebody's reality, whoever that writer is, right?
That's a great answer. Yeah. How do you deal with inspiration and creativity when you have a tight deadline?
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes you're doing jobs that are for work, you know. I mean, it's like sometimes not everything you write, you're gonna, it's like the passionate holy grail of writing is going to emerge from you. That's why screenwriting, you know, I've learned over the years that it's also a craft that I can do fairly well. You know what I mean? So it's like a job. Okay, it's like I train myself to work hard, and you know, and I sit down. I may not love everything about this story. It may not be the story from my heart, my gut.
But you gotta eat.
It's a story. But yeah, you gotta eat. But it's also a story I know I can tell well, and so you just do it. You just do it. The saving grace for me is that in sitting in front of the computer and being lost in whatever I'm doing in terms of writing is like being transported to, you know, another reality, transported to the old movie theater I used to watch movies in as a kid in Olympia, Washington. So I still get a kick out of that process. Now, you know, I had friends growing up that wanted to be screenwriters, and they were like, I hate writing, I hate being in front of the computer. I'm like, well, that's a problem. That's a problem. Maybe you ought to look at that, because I love sitting down. I love giving myself over to the written word on the page and allowing a story to unfold, and you know, like I love the process. So it is not, I've not lost a step in 40 years in terms of like being excited to sit down and get to work.
That's beautiful. Yeah. A question: how do you sell a script?
How do you sell a script? Well,
yeah,
that's a question that's almost kind of like a dinosaur question from the old days of Hollywood. You know, when I broke in when I broke in the 80s and in through the 90s, there was a lot of scripts were being bought by studios, spec scripts, meaning there was no attachments, no stars, no producers. Just this, you could submit the script, the studio goes, oh, this would be a great movie, here's $1 million. That does not exist anymore in the world that we.
Wow, good to know.
That most screenplays or most series, or you know, you have it, if you're lucky enough to have a decent agent, they will try to put it in front of the right eyes to get excited about. Usually that's a producer or a production company. And once in a while you still read a script sells, you know, from a new writer, or you know, some writer, you know, for 6 figures or whatever it is. But those days of that sort of $1 million, $2 million sale of scripts, those are long gone.
I had no idea.
It's a whole different business these days. Yeah.
Good to know. Okay.
So the end game is not to sell your script. The end game is to finish your script.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yes, it's true. Like, yeah.
Okay. Then you can start thinking about things like, I've written a really great script. I've gotten great feedback. What's my next step? And my next step probably involves, you know, seeing if I can get it read by somebody like an agent, representation. Yeah. Very rarely does that first script ever get made. Very rarely does it sell. That first script usually is a calling card for you as a writer. And you're saying, hey, take a chance on me. Look what I did here. Okay. Oh, wow, this is really well written. Okay, I'm going to take you on as a client, and I'll send your script around and we'll get you some meetings. That sort of thing. Cool.
So this is a question that I don't know because I think you're going to tell me, well, as many as you, okay. How many times do you have to do rewrites? Yeah, I know you were gonna tell me like a year, 2 years, whatever it needs, you know.
No, it's not. It's not a time thing.
Yeah,
But here's
no.
the thing: screenwriting, rewriting is screenwriting. Rewriting is where the gold comes from.
Yeah.
Not your first draft. Not your rewriting is as much as is important in the process as the first draft is. More important, right?
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's the onion analogy. It's just digging deeper into that script. Now, you will get your script to a place where you love it. It's great. This is it's gonna be a fucking great movie. I love blah. And then you're gonna give that script to a producer, and he's gonna say, "I love this, and here's what I want to change." And then suddenly you're rewriting. I mean, my partner Jess sold a script to Sony last year, Shania Twain biopic. Okay.
Cool. I love her.
Yeah, and I love Jess. So there you go. So she sells that to the studio. They love it. They're like, "Oh my god!" And like, "We're gonna buy this. It's gonna be great," and all this stuff. How many rewrites do you think she did?
20, 30.
Yeah, you were close on the first guess. 15.
20, 50. Oh!
15.
15. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's
it was
just
still
50,
a lot.
like notes, constant, and the notes. It's a never-ending process. Screenwriting is a collaboration. The only time you truly own it is the first time it goes through your computer on your fingers, and you go, "Oh, it's done. I love it." That's the only time you own it, and then it becomes part of a much bigger process. And
That's
people have their
cool.
ideas, their feedback. You're going to have to do a rewrite for the studio. You're going to put several. You're going to have to do a rewrite when an actress is hired to tailor the script to her or him. You're going to have to do a rewrite for the director, whoever the director is. I mean, it's just an ongoing process, and I don't think people realize how much that. And that's why I loved my time at Disney on those 4 movies, because it was such a collaborative process.
Yeah.
Constantly. You are passionate about what you're doing in the moment, but you're also understand that it could change. It may change. It will change to a certain degree as everybody brings their own talents to the process, right? So
Yeah.
you just have to be fluid. Be like water, my friend, as Bruce Lee said.
Yeah, it's true. So, what do you think is the most important thing when you're creating a story?
The most important thing? Well, I mean, if you're creating the story and you're haven't been hired to write a story or do somebody else's idea, the most important thing is to come up with something you're passionate about. I think that's something that lights a fire in your belly. You may not have all the answers in the beginning. Sometimes it's just an idea. And sometimes ideas don't necessarily translate or get to the screenwriting process. I have carried many ideas, dozens, through my career in my head that I thought, this is fucking great. This is going to make a great movie. And ultimately, it peters out for whatever reason. So whatever finally gets you in front of that computer probably is a combination of something that just keeps eating away at you, that will not sort of fly away. And that probably is a good sign that you're onto something, an idea that you should explore. Now, does that mean it's going to end up being a screenplay? No, because these days I do outlines and treatments and things before I even attempt to write the script, just to see if I can turn this into a story, into a, like a movie or whatever it is. And if it holds water in the outline phase, and I move on to the treatment phase, and I write a 20-page treatment, it still holds water, and I'm still excited about it, then I will start writing the screenplay. That's
so cool. Do you can I eat when I start in this business, or I'm not going to have any like decent money? And I'm like, well.
Well, it's everybody goes through a starving artist phase.
Yes.
And if you're a writer, you go through starving artist phase many times during the course of a long career. So again, if you come from a place of fear about what could happen or what might not happen, or I might fail, or this or that, you just have to be a little more bolder, adventurous, and trust that you won't go hungry. and that it might take a long time,
Yeah.
but it's the desire to express yourself as a writer and to tell stories that is the engine that drives you forward.
Yeah.
Through everything, the good and the bad. Okay?
I totally agree.
My time has come.
La verdad le agradezco mucho a Tab que se haya tomado el tiempo para responder sus preguntas que literalmente fueron de mis seguidores de TikTok a él, porque realmente es padre el poder tener contacto y que te resuelvan una duda tan existencial como muchos de ustedes tuvieron. Y le agradezco mucho a Tab porque aparte sus respuestas fueron súper útiles, súper inspiradoras y realmente to the point. O sea, ven cómo habla, se nota que esta persona se dedica a escribir, ¿no? O sea, es muy elocuente en la manera que lo hace y sobre todo muy inspirador. Entonces realmente espero que les sirvan y se den cuenta que no todos los caminos son perfectos, pero todos los caminos llevan a Roma. Entonces, si es realmente su interés entrar a esta industria, ya sea para dibujar o para contar historias o para escribir, vean que no todo es perfecto, pero sí es justicia divina el hecho de que si ustedes intentan, practican en su craft, trabajan en su obra, en su arte, lo más probable es que logren entrar. Entonces, ante todo, no se rindan.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.